Hey Amy, hey Des, Ava, Sarah. Hey y'all, thanks for joining our IG Live today. We'll give everyone a minute to join us. Oh, Mia's already joined us as well. Hey Alex. All right, we're just gonna give everybody a couple minutes to join. So I'm just gonna sit here and wave at everybody. Hey, C. Allen. Molly, hello. Hey, Derek. Well, I have sustainability in progress, do not disturb, even if the building is on fire, written on this door. So, because we're about to get into some serious sustainability topics today, so with our special guest. So I don't think we'll be disturbed. So we'll just give everybody another couple of seconds to join us. Hey, how are you guys? All right, Mia, yep, I will add you in just a second. All right, well, let's get going. So my name is Dan. I am Fusion PKG's Senior Packaging and Sustainability Engineer. Today, the Fusion marketing team has given me the keys to the Instagram account, so dog photos for everyone after the show. But more importantly, I have the distinct honor to be part of Fusion very first IG Live, and I have a very special guest with me today. We're thrilled to have Mia Davis from Credo with us. Mia is Credo Beauty's Director of Environmental and Social Responsibility. To add on to that, she's an environmentalist, an activist, and I would say a game changer for us in the sustainability industry. All right, well, so with that, give me a minute to add her to the conversation. You know, for those of you that aren't on our marketing team, I will say that when we practiced this, that's how long it took me to figure out all the buttons to add her. But she's told me today that she's requested to join. So, but shout out to Alex Gordon anyways, because she helped me get all these buttons figured out. All right, there we go. Let's add her. Oh, the man, the myth, the legend, Benny. How you doing, bud? Hey, Mia. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, thanks. I'm just glad to have hit all the buttons already.
You did it.
I did it. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
These are exciting times for Fusion. You know, this is our first IG Live of any kind. So, yeah, happy to be starting it off here with you. Have you ever done an IG Live before?
I have, but I'm honored to be your inaugural guest. This is great.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you joining us. So, all right, well, let me just lay the groundwork for everybody today. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a great Q&A session planned with Mia to discuss leading the pack to green, to learn more about Credo's sustainability standards, guidelines, mission, and all that good stuff. And then we will be saving some time at the end for everybody. So, you know, if you have any questions of, you know, what Mia is saying and getting into, apparently there's a question box, so you can add all those. I'll try to push the right buttons then, and we'll, you know, go from there. So, all right, just before we start, if you've hopped on in the last few minutes, my name is Dan. I am Fusion PKG's Senior Packaging and Sustainability Engineer, and I am on today with Mia Davis, the Director of Environmental and Social Responsibility at Credo Beauty. All right, and with that, let's get it going.
All right.
So before we get into our topic about a little bit more about sustainability specifically, I was hoping you could kind of give us a little bit of background on Credo, perhaps share a little bit of background about yourself as well, and then also your role at Credo. You know, I think your title is very unique. I think your position is extremely valuable to the industry and where we're going as an industry, and sustainability in general. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me and for kicking me off with that awesome question. I'm happy to be here. So yes, again, my name is Mia Davis. I'm the Director of Environmental and Social Responsibility for Credo Beauty. Credo was founded in 2015 by two industry vets who came from Sephora and had a long and rich history in the beauty industry, and who thought that there was a better way to do things with regard to sustainability, social responsibility, safety, but still really wanted to keep beauty fun and have an awesome shopping experience and a great educational, inclusive, like welcoming feeling in store and online. So they launched Credo Beauty. That was 2015. We like to say that we're the largest clean beauty retailer. There's 10 brick and mortar stores and a .com business at credobeauty.com. So Credo's still, pretty small in the grand global scheme of things. 10 doors is little, but we're small and mighty and growing. And I think, I'm really proud to be a member of the team. I met Annie Jackson a couple years ago and pitched doing some work for her for Credo as a consultant. And then I ended up joining part-time, and I love the company. I love the mission. I love everything that Credo stands for and how authentic they are. So I'm honored to work with them, and gave myself the title of Director of Environmental and Social Responsibility, which is a mouthful, but I like it. It's a little geeky, but I think it covers all the bases. So I'm really helping Credo to define clean and operationalize clean. Because Dan, as you know, Credo has 135 brand partners. It's a lot.
Right. Yeah.
And and a lot of the brand partners are, innovators and leaders in the space. But most of them are small. They're indie beauty brands. So we really see them truly as partners, and we're helping to define clean and give them a roadmap for what clean is and how they work with their suppliers, whether it's ingredient suppliers or packaging suppliers like you guys, to keep moving the needle in a more sustainable direction.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's key. Sustainability is definitely here to stay. So I think that's excellent. So thank you for mapping, the field of your awesome work, providing a bit more context on Credo for us. So as we've kind of talked about and noted that, you guys are leading a big push on, transparency and sustainability. So I'd love for you to walk us through a little bit more on the clean standards as it relates to, the clean beauty side, and also the packaging guidelines side. Perhaps you could take us through those really awesome Venn diagrams you have for each one.
Yeah, happy to. So like I said, I'm a little bit of a geek, so I have Venn diagrams to describe these things, and I will articulate those for you guys. So clean, I hear a lot of the time, especially out in in blogs or on social media, does clean even have a meaning? What is clean? Is it just marketing? And the answer is that it can be something or nothing, just like so many other terms, right? Yeah, there's no federally agreed upon definition of clean or safe or eco or too many things. Luckily, there is on organic. But for us, we have defined clean. So we absolutely feel that there's a good definition of it. And the way that Credo defines clean is that I see it as a Venn diagram with clean being the nexus, the middle. And then there's these overlapping orbs, and we have safety, sourcing, sustainability, ethics, and they're all packaged in transparency. Because if you don't have greater transparency around ingredients and resins and feedstocks and processes, then how can you really walk the walk, right? How can you really talk about clean, how you're leading clean if you don't know? So really briefly, safety is about hazard and risk. It's can this ingredient, this resin, or this material cause harm? At what levels? To whom? Where? That's safety. Sourcing is about, is it natural? Is it naturally derived? Is it synthetic? Sustainability is how was this ingredient grown, harvested, mined, or manufactured? Ethics is a big bucket. It's around, if this is an animal-derived ingredient, was there animal welfare attention? Were people paid a fair living wage when they were harvesting this agricultural ingredient or picking this mica with children involved. So you can see how these things have some overlap and some commonality sometimes, but they're not the same, right? So you can have a natural ingredient sourced naturally that is not sustainable. It could be grown on a plantation that was like clear cut with tons of pesticides, herbicides, horrible, growing practices.
Right.
It can also be unethical, where you're not even paying people a living wage to harvest, and you're decimating the local environment.
Yeah.
Have a perfectly natural ingredient that is not safe or sustainable, or one of those things. So that's where clean sits for Credo. Clean is really the nexus of these things. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to check the box all the time for every single ingredient or for every single package, but it's about asking those hard questions of the supply chain and of packaging suppliers like Fusion, and really trying to find the partners there who are willing to have more transparency and answer those questions, instead of basically being incentivized to not have the answers to some of those hard questions.
Right. Sure. Yeah. I totally agree. That's excellent work. And I think everything that you have on those Venn diagrams makes sense, and it really is required to be part of the solution. Yeah.
And you asked where the packaging standard fits in. So, I mentioned sustainability is a core tenet and a part of our definition of clean at Credo. And
Sure.
When we launched the Clean Standard a couple of years ago, we were focused primarily on ingredients and products, but we knew that packaging was kind of like the next chapter here. So the Sustainable Packaging Guidelines, we launched them in August of this year. And they have both kind of this more holistic, like best practice guidance approach, and then some really concrete milestones that we're asking all the brand partners to meet if they want to sell with us. So the reason that this is important, I'm sure, many of the folks that are joining probably already know some of these stats, but it's worth making sure we're on the same page about why this matters. So over 300 million tons of plastic are made annually globally. And in our industry, over 100 billion, like around 120 billion cosmetic packages are produced annually for our industry. And most of them are plastic. Very few of them are designed to be reused or refilled, and very few of them, unfortunately, are recycled. So we have a big problem, and we're contributing to consumption and waste in a really big way. And when Credo Beauty is like trying to lead the way on clean, you have to start to really define what that means vis-a-vis packaging if you're going to be legit. So the Sustainable Packaging Guidelines are, we feel, industry leading. We're really proud of them, but we also think that they're attainable. They have to be, right? Or we're not doing anyone any good if we're going out of business and Fusion can't provide packaging too. So trying to be both really like pushing the envelope and also be attainable. And the first step of the Credo Sustainable Packaging Guidelines, the first kind of phase, the soonest thing that we're implementing, is next year in June 2001, we will be eliminating single-use masks and wipes. So anything that you open a package and you use it once and you throw it away, we're saying no more to that. That's a big business decision.
Yeah.
People love wipes and masks, and I get it. They're fun and they're handy. But they were designed to be used once, and then they're almost always thrown in the landfill. And unfortunately, one of the many I think misconceptions out there is that it could biodegrade. Oh, if it's it's from bamboo or it's from cotton, it will biodegrade. Nothing biodegrades in a landfill, like nothing. The situation there, it's not set up to help anything decompose. Not enough oxygen, not enough light, no microbes, everything is squished down. So nothing biodegrades there. So we said, nope, we're getting rid of that by 2021. And then there are other phases that I'm happy to elaborate on. But I think one of the other big milestones that we have with the Sustainable Packaging Guidelines at Credo is that if you choose to sell products in packaging that is made with petrochemical plastic, it has to be 50% recycled content by 2023. And if you're not in the business, 2023 sounds kind of far off, like really 2023? But if you are in the business, and Dan, I'm sure you can back me up on this, that's soon. That's really soon, because it takes a long time to make sure that the product that you've formulated, like the goop or the powder or whatever your product is, is compatible with your packaging, and you got to use what you already have. It would be unsustainable actually to like landfill the stuff that you have. We want people to sell down what they already have, right? And start to move into new packaging. So that is why the 2023 deadline is for the 50% recycled content.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I do think that all the goals that you guys have set forward, they are attainable, but they are difficult. You know, I think there is going to be some work needs to be done to, you know, get everybody there.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for that. So I'd like to keep on the clean standard packaging guidelines just a bit further, ask a few more clarifying questions. So now I've seen that a lot of them are, you know, they do have milestones, and you've got, you know, some that are ongoing, you know, that will be changing over time. And then some with clear finishing dates. And you got expectations. Like, it's a great document for anybody that maybe hasn't read it. I mean, the document, you know, is available, and it really outlines exactly what you're expecting. So yeah, that's excellent. But a couple of questions for you today on those. So I wanted to maybe take a little bit of a deeper dive, you know, from how you developed those Venn diagrams that you created and the timelines and the goals. You know, did you utilize any like organizations, you know, like you got the APR, the SPC, you know, the Recycling Partnership, you know, which is working on that recycling that we were talking about, or maybe any commitments? You know, there's a lot of folks committing to, you know, the Ellen MacArthur circularity. Or even just, obviously you and I have worked together, but so there's you're working with partners. But just wanted to see what those inspirations and how you came up with these guidelines that launched in August.
Yeah, great question. So yes, I have consulted all of the organizations that you just mentioned. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation is an excellent resource. I feel like I've read everything that they've put out in the last couple of years to really take like a crash course in the concept of circularity. So folks know circularity is, it's really about either a safe return to nature or a safe return to industry. It's the idea that we should be designing things to have truly a circular path. So it doesn't just mean recycled, or it doesn't just mean that they contain recycled content. It means that it has a benign end of life, right? That it's not causing harm, which I think is a really important point. And for us in those milestones that you mentioned, Dan, that's an ongoing milestone that we're absolutely working on right now, and that we're continuing to work on over time. So that's not going to end. That's why that one is considered ongoing. It doesn't mean like, oh, get to it some other day, we'll talk about it, and not actually implement it. Quite the opposite. It means really, this is a process, and it's only going to continue to evolve. It's more like a journey, not a destination, right? So yes, we used Ellen MacArthur as Foundation as one of my resources. I mean, I researched the sustainable packaging guidelines for over a year, and I interviewed dozens of people. And part of the reason that it took that much time to research is that there are a lot of, first of all, lies, like just myths and lies about what happens in the world of packaging and how much of it is recycled. Unfortunately, very, very little is actually recycled. And it's like you have to sort through the myths, or the like the lack of truthiness, right?
Yeah.
Not fully true statements. And do a lot of fact checking, and like get the story from a lot of different stakeholders up and down the value chain, so that you can really fill in what seems to be really happening on the ground. So that was one reason it took so long. And the other is that in 2018, China stopped taking a lot of our trash over here. And that was under a policy called the National Sword Policy. So previously, the hard to recycle packaging, which is very, very common in our industry, in the beauty industry, was getting put on freighters and shipped off to China to be recycled. Some of it was, and a lot of it wasn't actually ever being recycled. It was being burned in open pits, which is an environmental and public health disaster. But it was out of sight, out of mind for the United States, and it was just a way that we could kind of like pretend that this wasn't a problem. So in 2018, China was like, nope, we're not taking this anymore. And since then, the 2 years that have passed, we've really been reeling, we meaning the United States and anyone who's trying to kind of pay attention to what's happening, we've been reeling from this and really figuring out, okay, what is really recycled here? What does the infrastructure meaning the recycling facilities and landfills and take back programs where they exist. What is the infrastructure actually doing with this stuff? Where is the market? Is there a market for polypropylene number 5 plastic or not? Completely depends on who you ask and on what day. The other interesting thing about this, so we're still collecting data and figuring out what's real after the 2018 change, but it's both a global and a highly localized industry, the recycling industry. So you have these global trends, but then it really depends on where you are and what your city and your municipality will do. A good example of this is that in Northern California, near wine country, glass is recycled at an incredibly wonderful rate because there's a buyer, the wine industry, that is local, and it's never ending, and it's extremely steady supply and demand. And unfortunately, where I live in Massachusetts, which has great recycling laws and was one of like the first, bottle bills passed, if not the first, the market demand, the supply and demand for glass it's really dismal and crappy. And glass is it's not sorted properly, and it's so expensive to haul around, and it's really hard to find end use for it. So even though I love glass for a lot of reasons, it really depends on where you are and what you're making. So anyway, that was a very like in the weeds answer to your question of like, what were my resources, but hopefully that gives you some color into all the work that went into developing the Credo Sustainable Packaging Guidelines.
Yeah, no, that was a perfect answer though. I mean, and just to touch on the whole like different MRFs, I mean, that is what we found. Like, you have a certain area where, yes, everything is recycled. And then you have another area where, yeah, they're not currently taking one material or another. So that's why at Fusion, I think we've even done a video where we've done like, I think maybe it was a TikTok where it was pretty much guided and geared towards like, hey, you need to learn how to recycle properly in your situation, like whatever your area is doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is definitely important to be paying attention to that.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's important, and we've got to fix the recycling problems because we can fix them, but we're also not going to only be able to recycle our way out of this. It takes a lot of different tools in the toolbox. So, king for the sustainable packaging guidelines, and what I'm really hoping the whole industry will move toward, is refills. So I don't mean like the bulk kind of refill when you're like filling up your, your oatmeal grains or whatever. But more like a drop-in replacement where you have, for example, if it's a deodorant stick, you have the stick, you think of it as something that is not disposable. You pay like a deposit, like a premium for this beautiful thing, hopefully beautiful and enjoyable to use. And then you drop in your replacement deodorant, and you throw away or you recycle just a small cartridge that is, a fraction of the material that would go into a regular deodorant stick. And there's innovation that we can do for every single type of product where we can be doing more refills. And it really takes, working with partners like Fusion, working with our brand partners, and just internally at Credo, it takes like it's a different way of conducting business. Like our merchants are going to have to think differently about how you set up a store, and the folks on the floor in the store have to think differently about how you sell, and on .com, same thing, and shipping. So it's challenging, but we have to do it. I mean, it's incredibly important to reducing our consumption and waste.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Sarah's put a comment here at the bottom, but she said so much confusion, but so important to clarify. And that's really the problem, is that there's also people that don't really even understand how to properly recycle, that you can't put all your recycling in a bag, right? So even if it gets to the MRF, now they can't properly sort it. So it is about, clarifying the confusion, getting rid of the confusion, and then, proper training and then finding solutions from there on how to make things a bit more recyclable. So 100% agree with you on that. So let's go. Next up is something related to that a little bit about recycling. So I wanted to touch on one of the hot topics right now, important topic as well, which is the use of PCR, or post-consumer recycled content, which comes from our recycling, the glass or the plastic. For Fusion and our friends at Aptar, this is a big initiative for us due to the importance of PCR. Fusion has even made specific commitments via the APR's Demand Champion program that we are trying to get it, through the full system, reclaim it and then repurchase it. So I just wanted to touch base with that, with you on that, with Credo's side. Why do you feel that PCR inclusion is important? I mean, you guys are using it 50% in a couple of years here. So just if you could touch on maybe your goals and you know, why you find PCR important.
Yeah. Well, again, reduce, reuse, recycle goes in that order on purpose. So where we can be just reducing the size and the amount of material that we use, that's where we should start. Reuse, or in our case, it would be refilling, right? That is still king. That's a better way to go. Recycling, incredibly important. It's the third R, right?
Yeah.
So we want people to be able to recycle their packaging. So it should be designed in a smarter way so that it can actually be caught by the recycling facilities, whether it's a human being sorting them or the machine. There are just certain types of plastic and certain shapes and sizes, like anything that's smaller than 2 inches on more than one side, which is a lot of beauty products, are not caught by the recycling facility. Like, it will not be recycled in almost every case. That is a big problem. So when we are not making those packages, designing them to be refillable, we should at the very least be designing them to have as much recycled content as possible, because virgin plastic, virgin materials, but especially virgin plastic, is always the least sustainable option. So when we can be showing that there is a demand for recycled content, that only helps to create a more robust system where recyclers are incentivized to take more material back. They're incentivized to educate people how to recycle, right? And the system only improves when there's more clear demand. The supply will improve. So, you know, if the plastic's already been here, if it's petrochemicals already been pulled out of the ground, let's use it again. Let's absolutely get out of the idea that virgin plastic is okay for like anything. We shouldn't be using it anymore.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. And we do, going back to recycling. I mean, we've got Dan Dominski writing, you know, that some people aren't even recycling, you know, that we need to start, you know, attacking these problems within, you know, the industry. So making things more recyclable, recycling, using less virgin plastic, all of it is solutions. Yeah. So yeah, fully agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, it hurts me when people aren't recycling, like it physically hurts, but I also want to say this isn't like a consumer not recycling problem. The problem goes way back to, you know, up the supply chain. Everybody has a role to play here, but this isn't like, oh God, that, you know, that person didn't know how to recycle, and now look at all the waste that's all over the world, choking our waterways, and even in you know, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, where none of those animals are interacting with plastic products. They're up there anyway, right? This is a much bigger problem, and we need to, I think, make sure that the focus stays where it should be, which is that the cost of petrochemicals and virgin plastic is artificially insanely low and subsidized, and that needs to stop. It won't, this isn't going to stop until that stops. So that's really where I want to put the onus.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you. I didn't know all of that. So thank you for that information. That's great. But yes, hopefully it's something that we can work together as an industry. So I think that you guys leading the charge here with, like you said, the industry leading some of these guidelines are very innovative in terms of, you know, timelines and whatnot. So I think that's key, and I'm glad that's why we're discussing it today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're really hoping, you know, we see Credo sees the sustainable packaging guidelines as industry leading, and we're really proud of them, but we absolutely don't want to be alone in this. We can't be alone. If we're really going to make any sort of change, we need to be linking arms with everybody in the industry, in the beauty industry and other consumer product goods. And also back to the basic supply and demand, right? We're all going to win. Like, the more, we're not only helping the environment and helping human beings, but we're going to drive costs down. We're going to increase supply. We're all going to win when we all work together. So we really we see this as industry leading, and we're proud of it, but hoping that it's not industry leading for long. We hope like everyone adopts it and goes with our 50% recycled content by 2023 precedent.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, love it. The goals are, you know, a bit lofty for certain people perhaps, but, you know, Fusion, we're ready to be there with you guys and support you and get, you know, the brands that you're partnering with, get them in there with those sustainable goals and meeting that. Yeah. So we'll help you. We're partnering with you.
Sweet.
All right. So what is next for Credo with respect to sustainability? Obviously, you took a year to get these guidelines out, but knowing you and your background, obviously this is not the end of it. So, you know, what's next? You know, fill us in on some of these secrets of what's coming here.
Well, we you know, it's a journey, not a destination. So we are absolutely going to continue to evolve this. And as we hit like really big, like if we hit challenges where, wow, we just can't make this particular component with a PCR goal that we set, how can we be working together with other brands and packaging suppliers to really think outside the box and create something new? How can we go to investors to get them to get excited about R&D for new solutions? So we're really, we don't see this as like a carrot stick type of approach where it's like, here, try to do this. And if you can't, you know, there you go. Like, we're in it for the long haul. We want to change the conversation and change the industry. So that's just going to continue to keep evolving and keep going. We don't plan on shaking up the sustainable packaging guidelines to make them very different, because as you know, Dan, you gotta have clarity on the roadmap and be able to work toward that. And that's why 2 of those phases that we talked about are considered ongoing. If we get more data, or we have like really cool, new, innovative solutions, and we feel like they're attainable for brands, then we might get a little bit more concrete and give them some, like, phase them in with guidelines, goals, like for timing. But for now, especially around that, like take back programs and circularity and refills, it's starting the conversation and really working on it now and continuing to evolve it. Yeah, but I think, you know, it'll be both big and broad, and we'll drill down the more that we learn.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's always evolving, but yeah, I think the guidelines you already have are excellent. And so yeah, but I just wanted to clarify, see if there's anything else in the works for you guys. All right, one last question about the guidelines. So I'm thinking that, you know, there might be some brands that are going to face challenges, you know. I guess I'm just going to ask you, you know, what are you guys doing? Like, how are you supporting them in their time of need while they're figuring it out?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's a perfect follow-up question to this last point about how we're in this together, truly. We call them brand partners for a reason. They're partners. They're not like, nobody's beholden to anybody else here. In order for us to succeed, we all have to do this together. And a lot of these brands are small, so their minimum order quantities are lower. They're not huge, you know, multinational corporations. So we're trying to set up a system where we're working with preferred packaging suppliers like Fusion, who have read through the sustainable packaging guidelines, who've answered questionnaires, who've been on the phone with me like many times to hash out all this stuff and to make sure that we're really authentically moving forward, not greenwashing, not implying recyclability when it isn't there. And then connecting packaging suppliers with the brands, and especially asking them to, you guys, Fusion and other preferred packaging suppliers, to think outside the box a bit, not just on the innovative, like actual packaging solutions, but on, for example, crowdsourcing packaging, right? Like if you have a small indie brand that wants to order 10,000 new makeup compacts that are refillable, but they can't afford the custom tooling for it, and they only need 10,000. They cannot do 25,000. It's not in the cards. How can we work? How can we like ask others in the Credo family to raise their hand? Who else needs some compacts and doesn't need them to be exclusive to you? And maybe we can work together. So that's something that I've been talking about with Fusion. And that's like, when they say it, it sounds kind of obvious, right? Like, sure, why not do that? But nobody's doing that. Like that conversation isn't happening in other places. So we're excited about doing that. And that's how we're going to make it happen.
Love it. Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, I mean, we're glad to partner with you, glad to bring about solutions for everybody. You know, we're all in this together. Like I think you said it earlier as well. So, you know, we're all in this together. So that's a great opportunity for everybody. And hopefully we can all work together.
Absolutely. That's the only way we're going to make it work. It's not going to change if we do it in silos. I mean, that's really how we got into this mess, right? A lot of times the designers, like the engineers and the designers, are not talking with sustainability people who are not talking with formulators. And then we end up having packaging that's either, you know, toxic, unsustainable, not recyclable, designed to be too small, not affordable for most people or brands. We've got to like stop doing that, all talk together, and be willing to do things differently than they've been done, because that wasn't really working very well. So yeah, agreed. Love it. All right, well, just one more question then for you before we open it up for full class participation from everybody. I was reading your website specifically, and I was intrigued by a quote. You said you have a zero tolerance policy for BS. Love that.
Are there maybe like 2 or 3 guidelines that you've established from the clean standards, either on the formula side or the package side, that maybe you feel have addressed any of the ongoing misconceptions within sustainability?
Yeah. Well, I do have a zero tolerance for BS, but I also have a little bit of empathy sometimes where there's just misunderstanding or confusion. That's different, right? Like, I just want
Yeah.
because we've already talked about how like there's just a lot of misinformation, or something might be true over here, or somebody thought something was true and they repeated it. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about actual BS and like greenwashing that I really have no tolerance for. One thing that really, really bugs me that could fall in either camp, the accidental / ignorant category or BS category, is on zero waste. So people talk about zero waste a lot these days, and people will come into the Credo stores or be on social and be like, I only want to buy stuff that's zero waste. And it's like, man, like, what do you think that means? Like, what does zero waste mean to you? I mean, I'm a sustainability expert and an activist in a consumer industry, right? Those things are at odds. Like, I get it. I get that. Like, when we want people to buy things, it's kind of inherently unsustainable. And if we're packaging them in material, especially if it's not going to be recycled again, that's not that sustainable. So for me, I want to have, I've tried to clearly define clean. I look to Ellen MacArthur Foundation and other experts and thought leaders on defining terms like circularity. And I want to make sure that we're using them not as marketing terms, but with the full respect that those terms should command. They're complicated, and we got to embrace that, or we're not going to get anywhere. So I kind of call BS on, looking for a zero waste mascara. It's like, no, that doesn't really exist. I'm sorry. I mean, if you want someone to tell you that it's zero waste so that you feel better, it might not be
Right.
that.
Well, yeah, and that's what we need to have, is that we need to have, the key players like yourself, where, we are telling those people, like, this is what, if you think zero waste is that, something, then here's really what it is. And, getting that, and going back to the earlier points, it's understanding and giving them that knowledge. People don't know, and they just hear that word and they just start repeating it. But it's about, like, for me, I think it's just about getting that information out there. We meet with brands all the time to kind of talk them through PCR and sustainability, because you see, even with brands, they don't know. So sometimes you get just confusion that you have to address.
Yeah, totally. And if it's happening without thought, and just because people are moving too quickly, that's different than actually going out and really marketing yourself that way, right? I feel different about that.
Yeah.
Zero waste, it's not a stand-in for recyclable. They're not the same thing. And circularity and recyclability aren't the same thing either. So we need to just be, I think, a lot more honest about what we're making and the likely fate of that package.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I mean, that's actually the end of the questions I had. Do you still okay to take a few from the audience?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. Let's see if I hit the right buttons here.
I saw that earlier. Someone had a comment on, it's great that you're pushing for more post-consumer or just recycled content. It could be post-industrial content too. But it'll still end up in the landfill and it won't be recycled. And I hear you. I totally agree. And one of the points of the Credo Sustainable Packaging Guidelines is all around education. It's a huge part of what we're doing. So one of the mandates for the guidelines is that all 135 brand partners have to put on their web page, like their product page on credobeauty.com, and ideally on the package itself, how to dispose of the package. So if it's a plastic tube that has metallized parts and like foil overlay, it's definitely never going to be recycled. Don't throw recycling triangle on there and imply that thing is recyclable. It's not, and it's greenwashing, and it's perpetuating the problem to continue to do that. So that's a part that we haven't really touched on yet that I'm really excited about of our sustainable packaging guidelines. And if you're using like 90% PCR and it's never going to be recycled again, that's okay. It's great that you're using recycled content in that plastic. That's what needs to happen.
Sure. Yeah. Education and finding the solutions is definitely two of the bigger things and topics that we do even at Fusion all the time as well.
Yeah.
All right. So just looking through some of the questions here. So we have Lauren M415 has asked, how did you get to be so knowledgeable on sustainability?
Uh, it's my job. It's an awesome job. I love this job. I mean, I've been an environmental activist like since I was a kid. I'm really very passionate about human health and environmental health, and talk about overlaps. I mean, those things are completely overlapping. Though I think too much of it is sometimes externalized, or there's like a manufacture of doubt around how connected those things are. But human beings are the first environment for other human beings, and there is not a barrier between what is happening to birds and frogs and polar bears and what is happening to us. There's a lot of connection there. So, cared about this very deeply, and I'm inquisitive and learned a lot. And I'm lucky enough to have carved out a position for myself where I get to do it every day with really cool mission-driven businesses. And I ask a lot of questions, like I call people up. I do a lot of reading.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's key. All the different things. Again, just education. It comes back to a lot of education, keeping up on what's current, what's out there.
Yeah.
And fighting through the misinformation.
Yeah. Like, definitely don't believe something just because somebody says it. Like, yes. How many times have you seen like Dan, like marketing copy that's like, this new green product, and I'm like, cool, it's great that you care about green. Like, why exactly is this green? What are the specifications of this thing that make it green? Oh, I see that you're happy to talk about the carbon offsets, and that's great, but it's not recyclable. What are you doing about that? Or it's not going to be recyclable. Let's be honest about that. Why is there a chasing arrows symbol and all this kind of greeny leafy stuff on your marketing copy?
Yeah. Agreed. Sorry, I'm just reading some of the questions here, but Ava just wrote one here in the chat where she said, what are some of the things that you guys pay attention to in your everyday lives and beauty routines to be more sustainably conscious consumers? Wow, that's a very interesting one.
Well, I try to resist the urge to have too much stuff. Like, that's one thing. Okay. Coming back to reduce being first, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle. Like, beauty is fun and discovery is fun, and I don't want to take that away from myself or anyone else. So, like, go enjoy yourself for sure. I see the forest for the trees on this, and if like buying beauty products makes you happy, it's not that's important, and buy clean ones. But I know, like, sometimes I think people just do this. We're consumers. Like, there's a reason that we do this, right? You're like, oh, this new product that does this thing for me that's like similar to this other one, but apparently it has this extra. Like, I try to kind of level set and say, like, do I really need that thing, especially if it's in this particular packaging? So
nice. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think the one for me is, not exactly related to packaging or anything, but I'm a vegan for a lot of environmental reasons. There are certain, like you said, sort of certain things where you review the trade-offs of, do I really need this, product or whatever, especially if the package isn't recyclable. I try to live it, and I recycle. Like, so if I get a cup, that's like a single-use coffee cup at a coffee shop somewhere, and it's, plastic, I'll bring it home and make sure it goes into recycling rather than just toss it out in the garbage can next to the shop.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just about choices for me.
Yeah. I think once you start to train yourself, it's really easy. Once you learn it, you can't really unlearn it. So I don't feel like it's a cross to bear. It's just kind of how I go through life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's, it can be fun, at least for me. I find it interesting and fun to try to just be a bit more conscious, about what you're doing. All right. I don't know how we're doing for time here, but I
take one more. Someone just wrote.
Yeah. Well, actually, and I got a couple in the question chat that I'm going to combine. We had one from Sarah that said, "What does Credo, or how does Credo feel about compostable?" From Sarah, and then Neri asked, "What are your thoughts about bio-based plastic. And I kind of think both of those are an interesting, probably can go together.
Yeah, great questions. Compostable is not very real in the world of beauty and in the world that we live in the United States.
True story.
So I compost at home. We're obsessed with composting. I love compost. Want to put that out there. Compost at home. It's really fun and really awesome. If you're
Me too. I compost at home as well.
Shockingly easy and really cool. But when you have products that are designed to live on a shelf for, a year, and that have all this like really great like sugars and proteins and active ingredients in them, it's almost impossible to get a primary package that's compostable. So usually we're talking about secondary packaging, meaning cartons, or sometimes you'll see masks and wipes, those like, non-woven materials being advertised as compostable. Now, they might be compostable if you dug a hole in your backyard and put them in the ground. They would biodegrade. Many of them would. But people aren't doing that. And it's not realistic to ask people to do that. And nothing they won't compost or break down in the landfill. That's where they're going. They're going to the landfill. And they're going to be there. They're going to outlive me. Like it's not real. So when we're talking about that no BS policy and really working on leveling the playing field with these terms and taking the marketing out of it and just being real, that's a big one for us. We don't want to talk about compostability. I feel differently about, if you go to a fast food salad place, right? A fast salad joint, and
Sure.
They have a truly closed loop system where they have compostable containers that hopefully aren't coated on the inside with like Teflon chemicals, PFAS, which are terrible. But if they are really compostable and safe for you to be eating out of, and then you put them in the compost bin at that place, and they actually know where it's going, and they're making sure that it's industrial compost facility compliant, that's awesome. That's great. It's just different than our industry. And then the follow-up question on bioplastics is, it's still plastic. The feedstock might be better because it's not a petrochemical, it's a plant, but there's sometimes a tremendous amount of resources that go into growing that sugarcane or doing that fermentation process. So they can be more sustainable. They also might not be. This is one of those complicated points. They're not all created equal, and you can't just say like bioplastic is great, it's a better solution. I think sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. Bioplastics sometimes can be identical in their makeup to petrochemical plastics, so sometimes they can be recyclable, which is good. Sometimes they're not. So that's another, like, it's clear as mud, right? It's really hard to have, like, this is the right way to do it. If there was a silver bullet answer and there was one ideal packaging component for this industry, this would have been a much shorter Instagram live, right?
Right. If there was easy answers, we would have done this in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on all of those. I don't really think composting, for plastics is a great solution. But I think bioplastics, especially if you're trying to reduce your utilization of virgin plastics, for example, we offer things where you can replace virgin plastic with, like a corn husk resin or something, just to have a story of a reduction, especially if it's not recycled anyways, like you mentioned before,
right,
size-wise and such.
Yeah.
So awesome. All right. I think I've got one more. I'm going to ask you one more. So before we go, just want to, people, a lot of questions still that I think we're not going to have time for today. So could you just share how they would get in touch with you or with Credo if they have any specific questions for you guys, either on the guidelines or just things that have been said today?
Sure. So credobeauty.com, we've tried to strike that balance of putting out a lot of content without overwhelming people. So if you do want to learn more about how clean is defined at Credo, or get into the weeds a little bit on the sustainable packaging guidelines, it's all there at credobeauty.com. Go to Why Credo, and then there's a drop down that gets into all this stuff. Absolutely happy to talk with anyone who has sustainability questions that are particular to packaging in this industry. I'm reachable through Credo. We have a real live person who answers all of our emails. So if it's not answerable on the website, you can write in there, and then I will be happy to geek out on packaging.
Or formula.
Or formula, yeah. Care a lot about the sustainability and safety of ingredients as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because you guys are doing a lot on the formula side too. 2,700 ingredients, right? You're on your dirty list.
Yeah, more than that.
Ooh,
Since my
okay.
account. Yeah. Yep. That's what. Yeah, over 2,700. But it's about more than the restricted substance list. Like it's in a very important foundation to say like no to these thousands of ingredients that are known or suspected of causing harm to human beings or the environment. But it's about going a lot further than that to go back to that definition of clean around safety, source, sustainability, and ethics, and then transparency across the board. So really pushing on fragrance transparency. In this space, you're allowed to just say fragrance on an ingredient list. And that could be like a couple of essential oils, or it could be dozens of synthetic chemicals, including some that are known to cause harm at very low levels, like phthalates and certain synthetic musks, which we prohibit. But then we're just saying, like, what's with this lack of disclosure? It's 2020. Like, it's not the era of Coco Chanel when you were keeping your sauce secret, right? It's
right.
There's only a certain entity that stands to gain when you have total lack of disclosure, and that's not who we're working for.
Yeah, I think transparency, like you mentioned before, and it's part of your clean standards. I think that's really the key for everything. Yeah. It's just getting more transparency. So, yeah. All right, awesome. Yeah, well, I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to contact you. There's been a lot of good questions that unfortunately I don't have time for.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really, really fun. And like your questions were so fantastic and the audience participation was so great. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you, sharing further insight, Credo's goals and commitments and next steps. I think the world needs more game changers like you and Credo. So, yeah, great solutions for the planet. So I appreciate you guys. And then one more thing then before you go. So in case, anybody didn't catch it, Fusion is Credo preferred vendor. So, if you need the perfect sustainable solution, to meet Credo's guidelines, for package, for formula, whatever, feel free to get in touch with us via our social media or our new sustainability page that just launched last week. So, well, that wraps it up for us today. I'm gonna let you go, Mia. I've taken up enough time. So I appreciate you. Thank you again for everybody that's tuning in. But yeah, thank you, Mia, so much for educating all of us.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a fun session. Take care, guys.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for joining, and we'll catch you again soon. Take care, y'all.